Hello there, and welcome to KnowThyselfUniversity.net's book reviews. This particular segment is actually the intro that's going to go in front of all of the intro book reviews. So for this next 30 videos, you're going to see a lot of books that we're going to bring up, and I'm going to show you why it's helpful in my life and could be helpful in yours also. And in this intro, I wanted you just to know that this gives you an opportunity to get the books that we're going to be talking about and let you know why we're doing the books, but also to let the authors of these books know that once we do get into the in-depth portion of the book reviews, we're not going to just sit there and read page for page of your books. We want to basically just highlight your book and basically be a good commercial so that we can refer other people to these particular books and other books you may have. So we're not going to just sit here and just give away your whole book for free online. That's not what we're about. But we want to highlight certain books just so that people can get a taste of what we like to get into in order for us to know ourselves better and to know thyself university. That is how you know the universe. And this particular book, I'll be quick, that for this month, we're going to be highlighting Shawn Stevenson's book, the Sleep Smarter book. It includes a 14-day plan for you to get restful sleep and why it's important. 21 essential strategies to sleep your way to better body, better health, and bigger success. Shawn Stevenson with the foreword by Sarah Gottfried. This is this month's highlighted book that we're going to be showcasing. So you're going to see this for all the other videos. Okay, sit tight, enjoy, please subscribe, share, and comment on other books that you might want us to review also. Peace. Now, once again, as I do a lot in the preview or the intros before we go deep into the books, I'll show you two books at the same time. The Quran and Heliobiblio, the Holy Bible. The English translation of the message of the Quran. The Holy Bible, this one's placed by the Gideons, so I always assume it's free. I think I got this one from a hotel. Yep, this Bible is placed in memory or honor of a friend or loved one through the Gideon Memorial Bible. So, they pass them out for everybody. They make sure everybody has one in their hand. I appreciate them for that because we read here at KnowThyselfUniversity.net. And when we go into these books, we will do it intelligently. We will do it skillfully. And we're going to do it with honor. I myself am not a Muslim in the dogmatic fashion, but I honor that Muslim means one who totally submits himself to the will of the creator of the universe. And they say the name is Allah. I've been a black man incarnated in the Matrix, who was from a Christianized lineage, of course. But I don't consider myself a Christian in the sense of my contemporaries. I acknowledge the ancient teachings of Africa, which predates both of these religions. And I'm going to speak a little bit deeper in this review just to let people know I respect people's beliefs. And as I do so, I encourage others of these beliefs to respect all other beliefs where the people follow a practice of truth, peace, understanding, and for me, familyhood. So if you believe in those things, we're going to get along. Because I will go even deeper, not as much in this particular study, maybe once we get into this book right here, Conspiracies and Secret Societies, we'll talk a little bit for those that feel like these books have no place together. We'll talk about why when you go into your Masonic lodge, you see both of these books side by side. And why? So I thought they were diametrically opposite of each other, diametrically opposed, but they are really not. We're going to go into the knowledge that the only thing I don't have here is the Talmud. I can't think of the Hebraic way of saying it, but the Talmud. There's a couple of different names. But the first 5 chapters of this book that we know as Heliobiblio, which we're not going to get into it that deep when studying this book and say the book of sun worship. We'll get into that when I study the ancient Egyptian knowledge that these two cultures come from. And the Judaic aspect when studying these books, Genesis, we have, hold on a second. Okay, for a second I was like, wait a minute, do they have all the books in this one? Well, no, the Apocrypha wouldn't be in it, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to have to talk about the Apocrypha when we go into the Bible. But I chose these books because, and I use the word behoove a lot, it will behoove me to not talk about these particular books when talking about studying any books, because so many people, when Gutenberg, who was an interesting fellow, I like studying just the facts, little tidbits about different people. We know Gutenberg had something to do with a printing press. A lot of us didn't know he had to think of something to print. He had to be a businessman and be smart. He decided to print the Bible, not this particular version, which there are many, but he decided to print the Bible because he had to come up with something that people would pick up and read. You know what I'm saying? For people to get a chance to see what his particular invention could do, since his mirror that can record and capture spirits didn't work. Yes. I like studying stuff like that because it makes it way more interesting when you see that I think he tried to pop that one off before the printing press. Of course, it didn't work. He wanted a mirror that can capture spirits or something like that. Same thing with our Tucson beloved King James version of the Bible, and the year 1611, was that the year? The books of demonology was his real claim to fame before the so-called King James version of the Bible. The book of demonology. That's what he was really into. He was afraid of the witches and demons and stuff. And that book, I believe a lot of so-called real witches and covens around the world are still reading King James version of that. I'm saying these things because at some point I'm going to go into the books of becoming forth by day and by night, misnomered the Egyptian books of the dead, called that by those that were rummaging through the treasures in these particular supposed to be places of rest. Tomb raiders went in and they kept seeing these writings along with these funerary rites buried with these kings, queens, and just some notable peoples. of ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt. So they call them the Egyptian Books of the Dead. It was just a compilation of a lot of writings that they kept finding in different tombs. But per Imheru, the books of Coming Forth by Day and by Night predate both of these. Now, to say that doesn't mean go out and get rid of your Bible, get rid of your Quran. The Muslim learns about the days before there is enlightenment. He called that time period Jahiliyyah, the time of ignorance before we saw the light. Depending on if you adhere to the first 5 books, as the so-called Jews do, you may feel like that's the whole story. The Christian, and then the Quran would be those, that so-called Old Testament. The term Old Testament only comes about when somebody has to come up with a New Testament, right? So this is the Old Testament. And this part of the book would be the Old Testament. To the Christian, they added a New Testament. Those are the subtle differences. Even though they're huge, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the cultures involved. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of the countries involved. And we'll talk about the history of how these thought patterns basically spread throughout the world. People don't want to hear it, but it was through war. Not just because the story was so unique and people never heard it before. When they heard the gospel, they was like, wow, I'm going to have to just give up what I've been hearing all my life. Treat others as you would treat yourself. We never heard that before. It's not a new story. Constantine said he looked up into the heavens. He saw a constellation. We know it, what he was looking at. He said he saw a cross. We know it as the Southern Cross, and it's a constellation. He said he heard a voice, and it said, and I can't think of the Latin for it, but with this symbol, conquer everything. That's why a lot of my kin wore the cross. They don't know that's why they wear the cross. So I appreciate the knowledge from both camps. In this camp, they still adhere to a lot of the things that symbolically make sense to me. That don't mean I agree with it. I agree with the premise. For the Muslim, they don't see that there should be any division of church and state. God's law should be the exact same as the law of the land. So when we're listening to the news and we see people getting their arms and stuff cut off, we're like, that's so brutal. We've never heard of any type of savage stuff like that. It's in here. It's the same. The Old Testament is this for the most part. That Hebrew lifestyle, which we don't have the Talmud here. We don't have the Babylonian Talmud. We don't have the different rabbinical writings with me right now. But we'll get into that also. It was a bloody time in these books. There's a lot of war. Feels like more war than peace in both of them. The Hebrew lifestyle was a bloody lifestyle. The Hebrew lifestyle predated both of these. This is the latest one. This is before that. The Hebrew lifestyle, the ancient African peoples whose cultures influenced the Hebraic way of life. It's going to be these books, and that's why I'm still talking about it. People kill for religion. People will disown you, burn you in effigy. So I have to bring up these books when we get into these books. And I'm going to do it the best way I can, because I had my time of being a warrior, because I know my history. I know that as a black man anywhere on this planet, for 700 years in Africa, the so-called chattel slavery began with people that said they were adherents to this religion. Then when different parts of Europe learned from the Moors, who used to be mainly black Africans, began to mix with lighter skin and more hairy Arab brothers and sisters. And they got stabbed in the back, and they became overrun. But before that, they established the first university in Europe. They taught the world about the world. They taught the European about the world using globes. So they knew the world was round. Just people weren't feeling that there. It was too crazy. But once they got it and people tried it, people in Portugal was like coming from, a lot of the conquistadores came from a part of that world called La Extremadura. And they fell on everybody they met. And they said they were adherents to this religion. So after that 700 years of so-called chattel slavery, which means taking of human life and make it into property that you can take with you from place to place, was started by adherents of this religion. That doesn't mean that that's what this religion is about. I'm just telling you that we cannot escape. When I study, I can't just look at just this, because from my paradigm, the creator of the universe doesn't fit in even both of these. Creator's just too big. So I understand that my brothers and sisters, my Arab brothers, my European and African brothers that are adherents of both, there's a lot of my people follow this one, but they forget that the reason why they do, they were snatched and had a cross burned into their body. This one here, instead of a cross, it might have been a moon and star symbol carved in their body with a sword. That's how it spread. It would be nice to believe that they both spread by just talking, sitting up late one night and say, you know what, I'm an animist, but I really like this story of Jesus. I'm an animist, I sacrifice animals and use the animal spirit, but you know what, I'm feeling that Muhammad, you know what I'm saying? That's not what happened. And I'm saying that because I want to go deep into this, because there are adherents of this book that forget that it's more from this side though. Most Christians don't know that Jesus is in here. Most Christians don't get that Jesus is in the Talmud teachings. Well, I'm sorry, not exactly. That there is a Messiah talk, Mashiach talk. They just believe that he never came. So the Hebrew, the so-called Jew, which the term didn't exist back then, believed in this Old Testament and this Old Testament. The term infidel is in here, and in the Talmud. The Curse of Ham is in rabbinical writings, the Babylonian Talmud. And it was put into different versions of this one, meaning black people are all cursed and things like that. Once again, I just don't feel that the creator of the universe is really saying that. On one hand, you're going to hear me say that yes, men wrote both of these books. Adherents of this one say their book has never been changed, but this one is changed all the time. This one has been tampered with also, just through the study of history. But I'm choosing these books not just to discount the things that they're saying, because one thing I can put them down now, because we're going to go, this one, it's going to be a touchy subject. I get it. Especially for my black brothers and sisters, adherents to Jesus the Christ. I'm not going to get that deep in these particular books until we go on to the books of Coming Forth by Day, when I will break down that yes, the term Christ, before we even got that, you have to go back to Indus Kush, and the term Karast was there. Krishna. Then you go back even further to ancient Egypt, and you'll see Karast, the anointed, the most black, like Asar, the perfect black, blackened by the sun, anointed by the sun. Krishna, black, 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 black. You see, I've been wearing these. When my Mexican brothers see me with this, they think I'm perpetrating a fraud, false flagging, as the gang members would say. But I know this is my people, BES, B-E-S. Whenever you see a symbol of a person, a male with his tongue hanging out, that's BES. It represents the Twa people, the seed people that went across this whole planet. Ancient black people. Yes, and I'm proud, but it's not to brag. And I know I lose a lot of followers for that, but when you come to this channel, we can talk about the good and bad done by blacks. We talk about the good and bad done by the Arab. We talk about the good and bad done by the Asian. To not talk about it, you're not truly trying to know thyself. Because being a person who, I'm from the original people on the planet, and I'm immensely humbled by the fact that we are not in charge right now. And it doesn't take bloodshed to be in charge. My thing is, I want people to eat better, speak different languages so you can travel, get better jobs, feed your family. When I'm interacting with my Arab friends, I got a lot of friends from Oman, a lot of good brothers and sisters, and I got a lot of friends from Jordan. I got a lot of friends from Saudi Arabia. There's a family across from us that my daughter plays with, and I believe they're from Saudi Arabia. They don't speak any English, so I have to use the little Arabic that I do know. And this is and this isn't a whole book, but I'm into study guides also. I only took one Arabic class, Kif Halik and stuff like that. Mahaba. You know what I'm saying? And actually it was on a DVD that I used to sell back in the day. My number one selling DVD was my 6th language intro, the basis of Spanish, French, Swahili, Arabic, Chinese, and Korean. So thousands upon thousands of copies. Kept my family fed for years. Very proud of it. And of course, didn't even have to master all of those languages, but I knew enough to where people wanted to speak like I did. But I'm still talking about these books. I'm going to sum it up. There's a lot of good that can be derived from both of these books. There's a lot of knowledge that can be brought out of these books. There's also a lot of pain in these books, but they're too important to not talk about. So just because I'm not a Muslim, even though I've attended a mosque, I've been to the Nation of Islam in America, the Nation of Islam. I've also been to the Orthodox mosque, which is numbered Arabs for the most part. I've gone to many different types of churches. I've been invited to a lot of the Masonic lodges, Prince Hall, the White Version, some of everything. And for our brothers and sisters that are in the black so-called Greeks, been invited to those meetings also. I just didn't feel my fit, but I appreciate and always honor any culture that would invite me to break bread with them. I'm not that type of person that's going to just denounce it. And once again, I'm bringing it up because, I used to go hard. Talk about slave-matic Christians, and I talked about slave-matic black Muslims. Black for the most part, because I was like, no, the original religion of black people is not Islam. He was wrong about that. Eat to live, good, but at the same time, when I break it down, milk and bread, not so good. But I'm a lot older, and just like reading The Art of War that we were just talking about, the books of power and the strategies of war, we're gonna talk about Sun Tzu and his grandson, his great grandson's writings also. But now isn't the time to divide. We can talk about these holy books in a way to not totally make people feel stupid for following them. And I stopped that when I felt a little hypocritical, because I've got friends, I've got godfathers, if you want to call it that. I have extended family that are from different cultures. I've lived with African families as an ethnologist and as just a brother, you know what I'm saying? But in my scientific part, that's where my ethnology and my ethnographies were written. But to have big brothers and big sisters of the indigenous life, some Christianize and some stick with their very traditional native roots, it was hypocritical for me to see them and their stories. They're called myth when it's not Christian. That's where the word occult come from. Cult, a lot of people think they're not a part of a cult, but a church is a cult. C-U-L-T. That's where the word school comes from, like Asclepius, the one who schools and teaches about the knowledge of the snakes. Asclepius, ancient Imhotep, Hippocrates. The occult outside of the church, we get terms like the heathen, the pagan. But I stopped going so hard on the black Christian, the black Muslim, because I wasn't going that hard on my indigenous brothers and sisters, like my Navajo friends. A brother that's he was the head of the AIM, American Indian Movement, very political, powerful warrior. He gave me the name Pawi-Kenawata. Then he also years later gave me the translation in his mother tongue. Pawi-Kenawata is coming from the Kickapoo, and that's for his father, I believe, is Kickapoo. His mother is Comecrudos. They're in Lubbock, Texas. And Mach Pest will be that name. Thunder's Dreams, the one that would teach. That's what he told me. You know, so I'm a brother too. I'm a person of knowledge. He could have been like, Negro, please. You're gonna be mud rat. You know, I don't know. But no, I'm just keeping. The one that would teach the people the ways of the earth. I believe that's what it is in English, something like that. But I like the other version, which is the literal translation of Thunder's Dreams. Most indigenous people and even the African, thunder usually means something bad's about to happen. But I always looked at it as the way that I was just so powerful, and I felt like I got my energy from thunderstorms. So I was cool with the name. I was cool with the name. It's not a name I got myself from a book. A real indigenous brother, a true warrior who's done the Sundance. You know what I'm saying? He's got the marks on his chest from doing the Sundance. For those who know what that means, you know this. He's a real deal. He's not playing. He travels this planet teaching about the ways. And I'll say his name, Juan Mancias. You know, I don't know if he wanted to put him out there, but he's cool. You know, he might be like, "Oh, dude, I don't want to be associated with you, Negro." But no, he's very cool brother. Juan Mancias. You can check my Facebook page. He's very active in the indigenous community. And I'm bringing it up because as I was getting older, I would never discount my indigenous brothers and sisters' way of looking at life. There are people, you know, indigenous people all over the planet, the original peoples, who will tell you, I come from the bear. Our people come from the sun. Our people come from the snow. Our people, you know, our traditional story says that there was a spider that came out of the ground, spun a big web, and produced humans. You know, it's just something like that. It was hypocritical for me to look at that and say it's beautiful, and then to see people who say that they worship a guy who was born to a virgin, God's only son, walked on water and a lot of, you know, and all this type of stuff, and to discount them. And adherence to a guy who also was on the run from his own homeland, went to Ethiopia, and then was inspired by the Creator to do something big. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with them. They were on the run. When Jesus was a baby, they ran to Ethiopia, to Egypt, was fed, taken care of. 12 years old, he's teaching. He's in this book too. He was able to speak at birth. You know what I'm saying? He's in here. That's what we're going to talk about. They know Jesus, but they say he's a teacher, not the only begotten son. And a lot of them will remind you that Paul came up with his own version. But I don't want to do it like I used to, where I used to blast people and say, you don't know your own book. I used to put people in check. I was a little bit arrogant with it because people were arrogant with me. But the true art of war is not to always fight fire with fire. Because in reality, what do the firemen use when they put the fire out in your house? Do they use fire? No, they use water, don't they? If they came with a blowtorch, a flamethrower, when you call the fire department, you will stop calling them. They come with water. You fight fire with water for the most part. So when someone is hot-headed, you become the one that's cool-headed. And that's where I am now. I've been on the planet for 43 years. So I used to blast people. I used to be online writing long dissertations, breaking down the stupidity of people following these westernized religions. And I break it down, and I always took it back to ancient Egypt and showed them that you plagiarizing from my ancestors. Still truth in it. But that's not the method that I would like to have as my legacy when people remember me, not just when I'm dead and gone, but even after watching these videos. I want you to come away with knowledge and understanding and just listening to a unique perspective, not to bombast and degrade and condescend and just make you totally angry that you ever stopped by this channel. It's not really about that. I think we can be knowledgeable and we can respect each other when talking about history, when talking about the future and the present as it relates to these different Western religions. That's my intro for the Bible and the Quran, and also the Talmud also. Thank you. See you soon. Well, thanks again for joining us today at KnowThyselfUniversity.net's online school. Hopefully this book review, or this intro to the book review, wet your whistle a little bit and gave you an insight of what we deal with when we deal with a lot of these books, and show the significance that a lot of these books and what reading really does is very, very detrimental to your health if you're not reading books these days. But please subscribe, share, and get these books so that we can talk further once we get deeper into these books. Once again, this has been Lorenzo McCoy. Share, subscribe, comment, and let everybody know this is the place to be for reading books. Thank you.